by his real name. 3. Alexandros, commonly known as Alexander the Great, was the king of the ancient kingdom of Macedonia between 336 to 323 BC. He was born in Pella in 356 BC and was born at the age of 20 to his father, Philip II. He succeeded Philip to the throne. He spent many years of his rule on unprecedented major military expeditions in Southwest Asia and Northeast Africa, and by the age of 30, he had created one of the largest empires in the ancient world. Stretching from Greece to northwest India, Alexander the Great, who was not defeated in any battle he entered during his reign, is considered by many experts to be one of the most successful military commanders in history. In his youth, Alexander was educated by the famous philosopher Aristotle until the age of 16. In 336 BC, his father, John II, after Philip was assassinated and died, he succeeded his father to the Macedonian throne. Alexander was rewarded with the title of leader of Greece, and used this authority to implement his father's pan-Hellenistic decrees, aimed at uniting the Greeks for the conquest of Persia. Alexander, who captured the Achaemenid Empire in 334 BC, began a series of expeditions that would last for 10 years after that. Following the conquest of Anatolia, Alexander, after a series of decisive battles, especially at the battles of Issos and Gaugamela, was defeated by the Achaemenid ruler III. He made Darius miserable. Later, the Persian king III, he overthrew Darius and completely conquered the Achaemenid Empire. At the last point, Alexander's empire stretched from the Adriatic Sea to the Beas River. Alexander tried hard throughout his life to reach the end of the world and the Great Outer Sea, and in 326 BC, he invaded India, winning an important victory over the Pauravas at the Battle of the Hydaspes. Then, at the intense demands of his homesick troops, he returned and fell ill and died in 323 BC in Babylon, which he planned to declare as the capital. Before he could implement his planned campaigns for the invasion of Arabia, the funeral cortege was kidnapped by one of his commanders, Ptolemy, and taken to Alexandria in Egypt. His tomb, which was later visited by Julius Caesar, is lost today. In the years following Alexander's death, a series of civil wars were fought by Alexander's surviving generals and heirs, the Diadoia, and these throne fights caused the disintegration of Alexander's short-lived great empire. The kingdom was divided into four main parts: Macedonia, the Ptolemaic kingdom, the Seleucid Empire, and the kingdom of Pergamon. Alexander learned about the Greek legends and believed that he was an invincible and even divine person during his expeditions. He founded about 20 cities and regions bearing his own name. The most famous of these settlements, many of whose names have survived to the present day, is Alexandria, located in Egypt. In addition, Iskenderun district, which is located within the borders of Hatay province of Turkey, can be given as an example of this. Alexander, like Achilles, became legendary as a classical hero and came to the fore in the history and legends of many cultures, both Greek and non-Greek, because of the fact that he was not defeated in any war he entered. It became a measure to which many military leaders compared themselves. Military academies around the world still teach tactics. He has been one of the most influential people in history. The Arabs called him Dulcarnain. His name is Alexander's Greek name is Alexandros, thanks to the extensive conquest expeditions he conducted during his reign and the wars he won. He began to be known as Alexandros Homegas, which means Alexandros the Great. Arabic Turkish sources mostly, as it is mentioned in the name of Iskender, passed from Arabic to Turkish. Again, Alexander, who is also referred to as the Great, the Turkish summer due to his commanding achievements, is also mentioned by the names of Iskender Rumi, Iskender Greek, and Iskender of Macedonia. In addition, as a result of the connection of his life story with Dulcarnain, a character mentioned in the Quran, he is sometimes referred to as Iskender Dulcarnain in Islamic literature. Ancestry and childhood years. Alexander is the 16th of the ancient Greek Montakidombaean. He was born on his day in Pella, the capital of the Kingdom of Macedonia. Although the exact date is uncertain, This is probably BC. It corresponds to July 20th, 356. His father was King Alexander II of Macedonia. Philip. His mother is King Philip I of Epirus. Neoptolemus' daughter was Olympias, although Philip had 7 or 8 wives. Olympias was probably his pupil, probably because she gave birth to Alexander. There are many legends about the birth and childhood of Alexander. According to the ancient Greek biographer Plutarch, on the eve of getting married with Philip, Olympias saw in a dream a lightning bolt striking her uterus, causing flames to spread everywhere before she died, sometime after the wedding. It is said that Philip had a dream in which he protected his wife's uterus with a seal engraved with a picture of a lion. Plutarch offered different interpretations of this dream. Olympias was pregnant before the wedding, as it turned out that her uterus was sealed, or Alexander's father was Zeus. Ancient commentators have disagreed about whether the ambitious Olympia spread Alexander's story about the nobility of God, some claiming that Olympias told Alexander this, while others rejected the proposal as irreligious. On the day of Alexander's birth, Philip was preparing to besiege the city of Potidaea on the Chalkidiki Peninsula. On the same day, Philip received the news that his general Parmenion had defeated the combined Illyrian and Paeonian armies, and that his horses had won the Olympic Games. It is also said that on this day, the temple of Artemis in Ephesus, one of the 7 wonders of the world, burned down. This caused the Greek historian Hegesias of Magnesia to say that the temple of Artemis burned down because he was away from attending the birth of Alexander. Such stories may also have been invented by Alexander himself to show that he was superhuman when he was king, and that glory was destined for him. In his early years, Alexander had been raised by a nurse named Lanik, the sister of his future commander Heraclitus. Later, Alexander was educated as a child by the strict-mannered Leonidas, a relative of his mother, and Lysimachus of Acarnania. Alexander had been raised in the manner of a noble Macedonian youth by learning to read, playing the lyre, riding a horse, fighting and hunting. When Alexander was 10 years old, a Thessalian merchant, he brought a horse to Philip, which he offered to sell to 13 talents. When the horse refused to let him be ridden, Philip ordered him to be taken away. However, when Alexander realized the horse's fear of his own shadow, he asked for permission to tame the horse, and finally succeeded in doing so. The Greek historian Plutarch said about the subject that Philip was very pleased with this show of courage and ambition. "My son, you should find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedonia is too small for you." She said that she kissed her son in tears and bought the horse for him. Alexander named the horse Bucephalos, which means ox-headed. Bucephalos carried Alexander all the way to India on his expeditions. When the horse died, Alexander named a city after him as a souvenir, Bucephala. Education: Alexander the Great and the philosopher Aristotle. When Alexander turned 13, his father Philip began to look for a private tutor for him and considered scholars such as Isocrates and Speusippos, who offered to resign from his post at the academy to take up this task. Finally, Philip chose Aristotle and provided the temple of the nymphs in Mieza as a classroom. In exchange for educating Alexander, Philip agreed to rebuild Aristotle's hometown of Stagira, which he had previously plundered, liberating enslaved former citizens by purchasing and forgiving and resettling those who had been exiled. His death. There was only one source of information about this death. Alexander's body had not shown any signs of deterioration for 6 days after his death. No claim could provide a comprehensive answer, providing a reasonable and workable explanation, a fact recorded by this source. The ancient Greeks thought that this proved that Alexander was a god. This article is the first real answer to the death of Alexander, in addition to the delayed decomposition of the body. 32-year-old Alexander is said to have developed a fever, suffered from abdominal pain, suffered an advanced stroke, and was in good mental health until just before his death. Alexander the Great's death ends as tragically as his life. His funeral was first taken to Memphis, and from there to Alexandria, where he was placed in a golden coffin. When he was asked who he left such a great empire to before he died, it is said that he answered, "To your most powerful," as the last word. The location of the tomb of Alexander the Great is Let's not forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video.